to welcome you to the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale on this absolutely gorgeous day. This is my first outdoor service with y'all. I was so excited when I heard that summertime we do services outside, and that doesn't mean we can't do them other times other than summertime, just probably not in the snow. But it is good to be with you this morning. This morning, I want to say hi to everyone who's joining us on YouTube. We're so glad that you could join us. And I want to thank Alex for making this happen. When we thought about, having our services outdoors, it was important for us to be accessible. And that included for folks who are able to join us in person. And if you're visiting with us today, welcome. It is good to have you here this morning. And if you've been away for a while, welcome back. And if you come here all the time, that's great. It's good to see you. This morning's service is in alignment with our summer theme of celebrating diversity. Our service is celebrating neurodiversity, and we're going to hear from a number of folks in our congregation. And just really, I'm so honored that the folks who've joined us today are willing to do that. And thank you to Paula for your inspiration in the service, and Ben and Darren for speaking. I really appreciate it. I think one of the things that's important is that as we celebrate, we also define, and we also welcome, and we also allow ourselves to be changed by the stories that we hear. So thank you so much for that. If you don't receive news and notes, which is our email that comes out every week, thank you to Nancy, who creates such a beautiful offering for us. You can sign up for that somewhere online, or you could see me, or you could sign into the visitors thing. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure you get that, is our main way of communicating. So just invite you to take a breath. I want to acknowledge our Director of Programs, Pam Fodor. Pam is going to be, yay, on vacation next month. And so you'll get, an email about that. I'll be here all month long and willing to answer questions and not know how to answer some of them. So I'm really looking forward to that too. But welcome. It is good. We have some announcements.
Good morning. My name is Paula Sijit Dvorak, and my pronouns are she and her. And we do have a few announcements. One of the announcements is that we are doing another Beds Plus volunteer event on July 30th. And Mary Getty let us know this morning that we still need some more food donations. So there is information in news and notes. And if you don't get news and notes, or you want to speak directly to Mary, where are you, Mary? Can you let us know? She's back there. So if you are interested, again, the details are in news and notes, or if you prefer, you can speak directly to Mary after service. Is that good, Mary? Awesome. Okay, the second announcement is that there are clothes available in the basement of the RE building. Jay Vancura is putting out clothes from his wife, Joyce, who passed away, and they are available for a donation to the church. And there's new clothes this week, so if you checked it out last week, you can check it out again and look for new things. But I think this is a great way because, number one, obviously reusing clothes is a wonderful thing to do for the environment, and also to honor Joyce's memory by wearing something that was hers. I think that's super sweet. I do that with my mom's stuff all the time. And then we have an announcement from Karen McDowell as well. She's gonna make her way.
Just that Pat Miller brought some kale from her own garden, help yourself, and next to it is a whole bunch of aloe. Please give them a new home because I'm not taking them back home. They're gonna sit here and the people who are walking along the sidewalk can be tempted to help themselves. And
there's a few microgreens.
a few microgreens also. And there are bags. Next week is when you can bring your styrofoam here to church, or you can always take it the first Saturday to Theater of Western Springs parking lot. But if you need some bags to bring your styrofoam, I'm recycling the bags.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to invite you to take a breath with me as we arrive into this beautiful space, in this beautiful time together. Invite us into worship this morning with words by Nina McNally, a neurodiverse young adult. Now here in the middle of the night, when everyone is getting ready for bed, I lay under the stars thinking about life. Right here in this moment, I feel alive. And only here can I say, go, do what you love, be because no one does it better. In this very moment, everyone else is sleeping. I lie here, resting, thinking, what's next? So I'm going to live my life to the fullest. I'm going to spread kindness and love to everyone I meet because you are beautiful and you are worth it. It is good to be together. And now, beloveds, I invite you to, if you'd like to rise in body or spirit, or stay in your comfy chair for our opening song, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
We're going to be singing a cappella this morning. My dad was going to provide the music, but we're at a little miscommunication. So I trust that we can handle it, correct? We're going to sing it 3 times through, okay? Our chalice lighting words are by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and move towards the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. We might have to symbolically light the chalice this morning because of the, too much wind outside.
The candle will get lower.
We will now take offertory for the church. And I'd like to emphasize this morning the welcoming nature of our church, right? That's what the whole diversity theme is about this summer, and particularly working to be welcoming and affirming of all individuals, some who may be excluded from other environments. So as we take this collection, please remember that support that this church provides. And we say our offertory words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with people around us, and with the world. Offertory will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your generous contribution. Everyone, take a deep breath together. We're going to be singing together once again. This one might be a little bit more tricky to do a cappella, but we all know it. Spirit of Life, number 1, 2, 3, if anyone has their hymnal. Julia, do you want to start us out? We'll sing it through 2 times. 2 times for this one, okay? We are also going to have numerous individuals. Do you want to come in front of the camera, Pat? If you walk around that way.
Yeah, I don't want to step over.
Signing for us today to be inclusive. There we go. And so they'll be signing along with Spirit of Life. Ready?
Thank you for that. You did beautifully. That is somewhat of a Unitarian Universalist anthem or mainstay in our congregations. I was just telling someone the other day in my internship church, the congregation said their congregational covenant every week, and we sang Spirit of Life with the signing. And we did that with the kids in the service. And it was so touching for me to be able to see the littlest ones know our covenant and then to be able to sign and sing Spirit of Life. These traditions connect us across space and time. I invite you to take a breath with me. Listening to the sounds of insects rising. Feeling the breeze. Connecting to your breath. Feeling your feet on the earth. And just allow yourself to settle in for a moment. To just be. New to the noise of these beautiful insects. And when I walk out on my balcony, I think of them serenading life. We invite the Spirit of Life, the Spirit of Love, the Holy One moving in, through, and among us to be present with us in these moments. Beloveds, we come each week with joys, with sorrows, with celebrations, with longings, with losses, with loves, with hopes, with possibilities, with worry. We come with all of it because we humans carry these things with us. And sometimes a lot of it all at the same time. And we pause at this time in our service to just acknowledge all that we bring with us. This is a time in our service where we share our joys and our sorrows. I'm going to invite us to do this in a couple of ways, okay? We have stones that you can pick up and drop in this beautiful chalice that Pam, of course, provided with us for us today. It doesn't have water in it. Like last week, we shared joys and sorrows by taking these pebbles and putting them in water, but we're going to do it in an easier way today. So this is what I will do. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share and have others hear, I invite you to carefully come up and drop a stone. The other thing that we're going to do first is if you have a joy or a sorrow that you would feel comfortable just speaking into space, knowing that maybe not everyone will hear, but it is heard. I invite you to do that. And then just a reminder, if you choose to come up, that pebbles can be dropped in silence. And for those who are speaking yours out, I will go ahead and drop the pebbles. So I'm going to invite you to take a breath. If you have a joy or a sorrow, a word, or a short phrase that you would like to speak into this space, I invite you to do that now. I will repeat it if I hear it, and I will drop a stone in for you. So invite that first.
Finishing projects.
Finishing projects.
Welcome, Deborah. Still.
Oh, I was just going to say.
Welcome,
It's
Deborah.
wonderful having you back in our fold.
Deborah, you welcome home.
I want to point out that Bill and Karen Burns are back after summer excursions around the country. They're in the back.
Welcome back. Welcome
And
home.
welcome visitors, Michelle again. And there's somebody I didn't get to greet, so if you want to chat afterwards.
Welcome to visitors.
Sign our visitors list.
Anyone else? Yes. For family and friends of the 14-year-old boy who was killed in Hinsdale, the other day I was here and I saw the officer blocking the street and he was shook up. And for the boy who drove the car. Now, if you have a joy or sorrow that you'd like to come up and speak, we'll compete with the train. I want you to be careful, making your way. Come this way.
I'm not going up there.
No, there'll be no weeping.
My sister and I are both recovering from some injuries, and thank you for everyone who reached out to us. So I celebrate you.
For those joys and sorrows, those spoken and unspoken, will you hold with me a moment of silent reflection? Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we pause in this moment before the next thing, holding all that we've heard, all that is held. As we acknowledge that in our joys and our sorrows, we are knitted together as one humanity and one earth, all of us connected. As we move through our days and move through our weeks, may each and all know this: you are always and everywhere held in love and mystery deeper than you can know. Take another breath with me. Thanks for being here again. I mean, it's, as Paula said when she opened and also talked about our offering and this being a congregation of welcoming. When we think about welcoming, we can say, you're welcome here, and we do. We love that. Like, I love that there's like life happening around here, right? This is life, y'all. And a true welcome is when we say and we acknowledge that in welcoming all, that we ourselves will be changed. When we welcome all, when we say it's not just you are welcome here, it's there is a place for you here. And so as we consider our theme of celebrating diversity, we acknowledge and accept the opportunity, the responsibility, the challenge of really welcoming all people who are different. Sometimes we Unitarian Universalists like to say we're with like-minded people, you know, and I know what that means, but I don't think it's true. I just don't think it's true. I think we're all not like-minded. We have different minds. Our minds process differently, and we don't all believe the same thing. So we can say that, but as we say it, I invite you to say it with, at the very least, an internal caveat that says, I know that we may agree on some things, right? And maybe that's what we mean. We agree on some things, but we still don't agree on everything. And once again, we are not all like-minded. And as we consider our theme for today of celebrating neurodiversity, we know for sure we are not all like-minded. We come with different ways of processing, different ways of seeing, knowing, understanding, moving through the world, different ways of being in community or not. And so as we consider the stories that we're going to hear today, know that we knew there's more stories out there, right? There's more stories. We all got a story. And so this is an invitation to listen, to be changed, and for us to always, it's okay. No, all beings are welcome here. All little beings' noises are welcome here. We're all welcome here. So as we hear these stories, first of all, I want to, again, bow in deep gratitude for the folks who were making this service happen and invite us to consider all that we are and all that we bring. And I'm going to invite you up then.
All right, hello. So I wrote a script for this, but I think I might just improv it. So many of you know, my name is Benjamin Dvorak. You know, Ben. I use he/him pronouns, but I don't really care that much. And I have actually 3 things. I have anxiety, ADHD, and what's called developmental coordination disorder. So I'm just going to run through those real quick. Anxiety is basically the brain assumes that most of the time it is in a situation where there is danger. So just anytime doing something, my brain will just be like, oh, something's bad here, even though it's not. And I gotta deal with that. It's gotten a lot better. I've gotten to do therapy to work on that. And, you know, that's not that big of an issue. I also have ADHD, which is kind of a weird name because it's kind of like, the way it sounds like you can't focus, but that's not true. It's more like you don't know what to focus on. You know, I can focus super easily on something that's very interesting. Or, you know, some people with ADHD, they cannot have like lectures at school because they can't focus. I love lectures. It's really weird. But then other things I can't focus on. That's just how it is. But the idea that it's no focus is kind of something that people think of, but that's not really true. And then there's the developmental coordination disorder, which is also sometimes called dyspraxia. However, it's different because developmental coordination disorder is like you're born with it and you have it, while dyspraxia is like you can acquire that, for lack of a better term. So basically, it just means that the communication between my brain, sometimes other parts of my brain, and my body is just not very consistent. So especially when I'm tired or stressed, I'm gonna have a hard time communicating both to my body, and my body's gonna have a hard time communicating to me. So like feelings, I'm gonna have a hard time telling what those are. So like something touches me, if I'm not stressed, it's not gonna be an issue. But sometimes something will touch me, and I'll have no idea that it just happened. So it's kind of like my senses aren't reliable, as well as difficulty with some hand-eye coordination and things. So throughout my life, I got really lucky. My parents very quickly recognized that these were my like weird behaviors were symptoms of neurological disorders, and not just like me deciding that I didn't want to do this for some reason, or I'm just making a scene because I don't want to see a movie. When I was younger, my anxiety, like, it was focused on movies. I could not watch anything. Taking me to the movie theater, I would not do it. And it didn't really make sense. Like, there was no logical reason for it in my brain, but that's all my brain knew how to do. It panicked, and I couldn't do it. And so, I got lucky. I got to go to therapy, and we worked through it. We figured out, isn't really any logical reason behind this, and my brain was able to understand what was happening to it, and I got better. I can go see movies now, stuff like that. The ADHD, that still kind of affects my life. However, I'm better at using my focus for things that I need, and finding the things that are helpful for me to focus on that I can focus on. So like, if I'm able to focus on like learning about science really well, I love doing that. I'm going to a science academy. In my education, I'm learning about science. So even though I couldn't overcome it directly, I can almost use it for my advantage. And then there's the developmental coordination disorder, which is kind of a rough one because it's like, it goes up and down. Some days, I don't really notice it. Like, I'm able to do stuff normally. But other days, like, I just didn't sleep well last night. I have a test. I am not going to be functioning very well. And it's things that mostly require motor planning. So, like, if I open the fridge and the milk is behind two objects, and there's something on top of those two objects, there's a decent chance that something will get knocked over. And I could, go and try and do it slowly, but then sometimes the ADHD kicks in, I lose focus, and I drop something. So it's like, some days it's just worse than others. But because I got the help I needed from my parents and from, my community around me, I was able to succeed and get to the place I am now. However, I kind of wanted to just talk about what might have happened had I not had that support, and what could, come from that. So without, someone knowing about the anxiety, if no one knew about that, or people just decided that they didn't care enough, chances are I would have just been forced to do things that I hated, and there would have been no, like, attempts to get me to understand why I hated these things, and chances are it just would have become resentment for the people around me, and that's never good. If it wasn't for understanding the ADHD, chances are I would just be like, oh, he's a bad student, and, I'm a great student. I go to, a good school, I get good grades, but without understanding that ADHD, it's super easy for people to assume you don't want to pay attention. But there are so many things that I wish I could just focus on and I could learn, but it's just really hard to. And if people just assumed it was because I didn't care, my life would have been so much worse. And just having that support and knowing when people, sometimes people are still like, oh, why didn't you do this and stuff, but at the end of the day, it'll eventually work out and we'll figure stuff out. But without that, it would have just been, people would have just assumed I didn't care and, thrown me to do whatever, I kind of wanted to do, but there was stuff I wanted to do that I couldn't do, and they helped me be able to do those things instead of just having me do whatever my brain decided I could focus on. And then with the coordination disorder, it's just like helping me with these things and, telling people about them and making sure people know that I'm not just like being a brat because I don't want to, someone's like, oh, can you make food? And I'm like, okay, yeah, and I kind of been unsure of how to do it because I don't know how to get the thing out of the refrigerator and stuff. And to me, that was a very difficult task. But to them, it was just like, oh, he didn't want to do that. He's lazy. So just understanding when something like that's happening, when people know that, it's just so much nicer to just be able to live in a way that's not constantly applying pressure, and knowing that I can just sometimes say, hey, this is really difficult. Can you just give me some more time with it? Or if this is very easy for you, would you mind just doing it for me, and then I'll do something else that I can do later. So it's just, okay. So it's just, the ability to understand that just because someone might be acting a little weird or not doing something, it's better to just talk to them and just ask, hey, is this something else causing this? Is this something that you want to do and you just can't? Because there's a large percentage of the population that I guess that there are things that they aren't doing that you think they need to do, but they also really want to do that, and they just can't. And so it's just, there are certain things I want to go into this too, is for example, let's say I'm going to a new, classroom and they're doing an icebreaker. So we're going to go out and play a ball game, and when you get the ball, you get to say a fun fact about yourself. Now, for a normal person, that's a little bit stressful, but it's not that big of a deal. Someone with anxiety, it's like, oh no, to talk about myself, that can be a bit scary. And then you add the coordination disorder onto that. Now, okay, I gotta catch a ball, I gotta talk about myself, and I gotta do all these other things, and I'm worrying about, I'm in a new place. That goes from being a simple task from someone to almost, very stressful and also very tiring. That's another thing, is that there are things I can do, but they take more energy. So sometimes I'll have a day doing stuff, and I might have only done stuff for 2 or 3 hours, but I am exhausted because I've had to use so much mental energy to get through handling all of this, and I have to think through everything, and I can't just some people can just do it, and it's I can't. I gotta think through it. There's gotta be a process there. So it's just, understanding when someone might be going through something that's just more difficult for them for any reason, Could be a neurological condition, could be a physical disability. There are just so many different things that people have that could make tasks that are menial or easy just more difficult. And I think that's something I just want to get across, is that everything is difficult for someone, and understanding that is the first step in helping them live lives that they can feel fulfilled in.
I really have to talk after that. So first of all, I'm so proud of Ben. He's overcome so much, and I think sometimes we forget that because how he presents himself, and because of where he's at right now. But I always joke with him, he was a terrible baby, terrible. The worst. I mean, I don't know how I didn't know that we needed to do something earlier, because he would cry just as soon as look at you, just randomly. And it wasn't until he started to be able to speak, which took a little bit longer because of the coordination disorder, and because his brother used to speak for him. But what I wanted to talk about is, many of you know that I work in mental health. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I came across a while ago the story of Donald Triplett. Has anyone heard of Donald Triplett? Donald Triplett was the first person diagnosed with autism. So he was diagnosed as patient one, or classified as patient one in the original psychological research that was done, the whole refrigerator mothers thing, all that stuff. And he actually just died. He was in his 80s. And Donald Triplett actually lived a very full and complete life where he worked at a bank. He traveled by himself. He lived in the home that he grew up in by himself. He was capable of all of these things. And when I looked into it, because I was curious as to, given that there wasn't a lot of early intervention or supports, right, for kids with autism, we didn't even know what it was, how that happened. And the overarching, and I'm going to cry saying this, the overarching thing was the community, the people around him. So he grew up in a small town, I think in Alabama, and very early on, people just decided, yeah, this is who he is. We accept him for that. We accept that he doesn't, he's not going to carry on a long conversation, right? Like he's not going to make small talk. He's going to be very interested in numbers. That was kind of his special interest. And they just accepted that, and they supported him and protected him. And he was able to live a very fulfilled life within the community. And it didn't seem like people were like pandering to him, or like, like people were like tiptoeing around him. It just seemed like, no, that's who he is, right? He's just a part of our community. And so I think that's what I want to emphasize, that acceptance, right? And that acknowledgement of the differences, right? So not downplaying that someone is different or that their brain works differently, right? Not dismissing it, but understanding that it's part of the human experience that we all have. When I was talking to Reverend Beth, I acknowledged that, we may not identify as neurodiverse, right now, but that's not to say as we grow older, right, that our brains won't change in ways that we present in that way, right? Or we have, symptoms that might resemble something like ADHD or autism, or just struggling with memory or things like that. So just much like with physical disability, right? We make these assumptions about our bodies and how they're going to work. Eventually, we probably will all have some sort of physical disability, and I think that's probably true with neurodiversity too, right? We all have differences among us right now, and our brains might change too as we get older. But I thought that story, if you get a chance to look it up, of Donald Triplett, was extremely interesting. He didn't really interact much with the autism research community after he was diagnosed. He kind of just went back to his hometown. His mom taught him a bunch of things, engaged with him, made sure that he had the skills that he needed, and he lived his life. And he died, in his 80s. I think it was amazing that he was able to travel on his own and to do all those things for himself. But also, he did that because he had the support and the acceptance of the community around him.
Good morning, everyone. Well, unlike Ben, I had a very different experience as a child. I'm going to try not to rely on this too much on my written text, but because I'm ADHD, I will forget important things if I don't look at the paper. Well, I like the thought of being considered neurally diverse a lot more than being considered ADHD. When I was growing up, I felt that the way I did things, most of my classmates thought I was different, and now I rather think of myself as being diverse. I oftentimes had report cards in school that said, "Darren is very chatty with his classmates and often off task, but easily redirected." So that was the strength in that. I really didn't get any interventions of any kind. I was thought of as being the challenging child in my family, and that caused a lot of family strife. In terms of school, my parents took into stride the fact that the teachers usually said something on my report card that was sort of negative. The thing that became a turning point for me was when I was about 13, when my father shamed me for some of my ADHD traits. And he didn't know I had a challenge. He thought I was just kind of an ornery, bad kid. I decided at that point I was not going to let whatever it was that made me a little different than my friends get in my way, and that I was going to show everybody that I was just as good as they are. So I became very involved in school and went from being a very average student to being straight A student, and people were like, what happened to him? And even in high school, though, my teachers would still say some sort of the same thing, that I was very social student, which I realized also meant that I talked too much, however, college was very different, and this is where my diversity really took a toll on me, because I struggled to stay on task all through high school, and I felt like, well, now I'm in college, and I don't have to do what anybody tells me I have to do. So I basically partied a lot. I got through college. I didn't fail anything, in spite of all that. And I do think, again, that change in my personality was a beginning of reckonings of my neurodiversity with ADHD. When it really came to roost was in my first marriage. When you're in a really close relationship and someone sees how you behave or interact with people in situations, it becomes much more evident. The most difficult problem was my scattered attention, forgetfulness, and because of those things and kind of trying to cope with them, I had low motivation and would turn out later some depression, which often accompanies ADHD. I even had difficulty on a daily basis remembering basic tasks. My wife would ask me to do something, and by the time I get down the stairs, I'd forget what the hell I was supposed to be doing, pardon my French. So this issue was not that prevalent in the workplace, or maybe I was lucky I worked in social services and they're relatively tolerant of neurally diverse people anyway. The inattentiveness and the moodiness did affect that marriage, and it eventually came to an end. That was when I decided I better get some professional intervention, or as my former wife said, you're going to end up alone all your life. So I went through multiple different evaluations from different mental health and medical professionals, and I think it was about 2005, to my dismay, one of the psychiatrists said he thinks I have adult attention deficit disorder, which right away that said to me, oh, that makes complete sense. I really had it all my life, but nobody in my small farm town community that I grew up in had the sophistication to point to it. And there was, of course, no neurologist in that town either. So I saw many neurologists, and I did take ADHD medication for a while to help control some of the symptoms and keep me focused. But ultimately, I recognized it as a diversity, and I came up with some of my own strategies to help me stay focused and a little less forgetful. And my new wife, Megan, would attest that I need those. And when we started dating, she was like, I think you're ADHD. And I said, yeah, I know I am. She supports me a lot and acknowledges when I do something goofy that it's probably from my neurodiversity. I always had my own little way of a string on my finger to remember to do something. And then, of course, sometimes I would forget why the string was on my finger. But ultimately, and many of you know this, I use my iPhone to remember a lot of things that I would otherwise not remember to do. So that is a real neurodiversity intervention for me. I could set a timer. I have to set a timer so by the time I get to the truck, I remember where I'm going, something like that. So again, if you are a family member struggling with some of these things that Ben and I described and Paula described, just remember that you can succeed. Look at Ben; he's in IMHS, the Math and Science Academy. Trying to find my last page here. If you are a family member struggling with it, remember there's lots of people that overcome, including celebrities. I'm trying to find this great list, and there are Howie Mandel, who I used to want to be like Howie Mandel. Simone Biles, Woody Harrelson, Michael Phelps, Agatha Christie, Mozart, Einstein, and even Michael Jordan are reported to have neurodiversity. So I also like to think of myself in another reframed positive manner as being an excellent multitasker rather than being unfocused. So I maybe I have a little autism too because I'm an accounting manager now. I managed to get through a master's degree and a doctorate program. And I'm glad I have an office to myself because people would be driven crazy by how I'm going back and forth to things at my computer. So I just thank you all for the opportunity to share my story and bring some understanding to neurodiversity.
Take another breath. And give deep bows. Thank you for sharing your stories. Here's the thing about these stories. You heard about challenges, but what else did you hear? Overcoming, what else? Acceptance, what else? Resilience, what else? Community, creativity, what else? Hope. Admission, truthfulness, yep. What else? Authenticity. Understanding. Yep. So believe me, y'all, I am gonna guess, and Paul is the clinician and probably has the statistics more than I do, but I'm gonna bet that the few of us who are speaking are not the only people in this space who might have some of these challenges. Is that right, Paula? Okay, so statistically we know that, and this is why it was important for us. You know, when I had early conversations with Paula when I first got here, I'm like, we're gonna do a service. And it was actually, I think, that conversation that kind of fostered the sense of let's look at this for the whole summer and the various ways that we live into the creativity, the possibility, the imagination, the welcome and opportunity of diversity, and in this case, neurodiversity. One of the things that I've heard, I heard from one neurodiversity explains that we all have various neuro ways. That's the diversity among us. There is a term, neurodivergent, which is used probably clinically to describe people who are not, quote, what's the word I'm going to say? Normal, right? So we get to problematize normal, number one. Oh, I heard one neurodivergent person say, if you've met one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person. So that's the piece that's important to remember, is that there are various ways that people with various types of neurodiversity move through the world. You know, people who are on the autism spectrum. The other day I was watching, oh God, I'm gonna admit this, a Hallmark movie. Oh no. Well, let me tell you, Hallmark is doing a good job, you guys. They really are. I mean, the first gay couple in adopting children, but anyways. The story was about these rocket scientists working at some lab. And the supervisor, the boss, was not friendly, not approachable, kind of needed things a certain way, not very social, right? And this was an issue among the employees, and he was actually being written up for it. And then, of course, he meets a woman, and they develop a relationship. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but through community and connection, he was able to navigate differently. And here's the miss, Hallmark. I'm so glad for our, gay, lesbian folks on Hallmark now, but here was the miss, Hallmark. This was an opportunity to just simply name that this is a person who is on the spectrum. I probably won't write Hallmark about that, but I look at things with that kind of a lens now. As for myself, I was diagnosed with, back in the day, it was called ADD in the early 90s. I didn't know, but I did find a report card when I just moved into my place from my 3rd grade. Okay. And there were A's and C's, and then there was a D for efforts. Right? 3rd grade. I don't have any other report cards. So what I knew is that I never quite got the grades that I could have gotten, even though it, like Darren in college and graduate school, I ended up doing really well. It was just helpful to know and to have handholds around how I moved through the world was seemingly different than others. There's 2 types. There's now we call it ADHD. It's ADHD with an inattentive type, the hyperactive type, or a mixed type, combined type. Yeah, and I was getting there, or the combined type. But there's also a lot of other neurodiversity that we touched on a little bit today, including people who are on the spectrum. And you heard about the ways in which our friends here felt safe, seen, heard, understood. And that's our role as a community, is to recognize that the people that we meet may have some type of neurodiversity that we don't understand. So what we want to do for good boundaries anyway is always say, can I give you a hug? You can know that it's not just for people who maybe are on the spectrum, but even culturally, if people aren't looking you in the eye in a really like white American, hi, how are you way, that's okay. They're not being rude. One of the things that I'm committed to, Pam is committed to, is, and you'll notice that in our services, there's like, at the back, there's little things for people to play with. If you need to play with, pick them up and play with them. If somebody's on their phone, maybe they're not just, texting other people about how fabulous the service is. Maybe that's the way that they pay attention. One of the things that I was fortunate to be able to do where in my last congregation is we met outside all the time. And it was a huge 5-acre property. And so people, and even when we were in our really small building, if people need to get up and walk around, they can do that. You can get up and walk around, y'all. Really, I'm not going to be offended. We're not going to be offended, us worship leaders. People might be curious about that, but then you can be curious. If you need to sit in the living room, I'm glad we have the living room. You need to sit back, you do that. If you need to stand up, if there are more things that we need for people to be able to hold on to work on their hands, that's what we want to do. Because the so moving part of your story, Ben, was how important community was in your family. And for you too, Darren, that acceptance is so key. And we can say that, we accept everybody, but y'all, that really means we accept people who we see as different. And if we can celebrate our difference, some of what we heard about coming through the stories was creativity, the ability to focus. We do have an ability to focus, right? Just on the, it might take a little bit of a challenge to get that done. And so if you or someone you love identifies with this, you don't just know that you're good. You're good. You are beautiful. And I wish I could sing, because I would sing that song, You Are Beautiful in Every Way. And with all that you are and all you bring and all of who we are. One of the things that I was reminded of is to speak about how children in our religious education program have felt welcomed. And one person in particular asked me to talk about that and asked for me to ask Pam what Pam did. And she said, I love them. I love them. I accept them. And because she's skilled and trained, she knows how to navigate the difference and to make the space. But all of what we've heard is that it's about love. It's about seeing the beauty in every person and being curious. I think one of the things that I think about all the time now and would get tattooed on me is be curious. Maybe on the other arm, don't make assumptions, but that goes along with be curious. So, beloveds, 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 you are so beloved. You are so beloved, whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey. You are not only welcome here, there's a place for you here, just as you are. And when we get it wrong, which we will, we invite ourselves back and back and back into relationship, into covenant, into the sacred promise that we make as a faith community to be the space where all can be nurtured and grow so that we may live out in the world as spirit, life, fate, whatever would have us be. It is good to be together. And I love you. Please join us in our chalice, acknowledging its outwards. Well, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. As you go forth knowing that you are loved, worthy, and beautiful. And we have some closing music. You can do anything you want now. Oh, I know. I loved working with Paula on the service. It was a joy.
Remember to take an aloe plant or two. And the kale.
Every day is so wonderful, and suddenly it's hard to breathe. Now and then I get insecure from all the pain. I'm so ashamed. I am beautiful, no matter what they say. Words can bring me down.
Now look around. Look at each other. It was I am beautiful, you are beautiful, and then she ended with we are beautiful. Don't forget it. Go in peace.
I know, right?